Okay,
Sounds
we
good.
are back today. I'm doing a one-to-one. We were doing these for several months and had a lot of success with it. And schedules permitted with busy people, it's tough to pin down times and dates. And so I have with me today is Prem, who we've been longtime friends and business associates and been around San Diego for a long time. And we finally made it. And we decided we needed to catch up anyway. And we said, you know what, let's just record and film it and see what comes out of it. So Prem, thanks for joining me today. And it's good to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me over. I don't know if you know this story, actually, speaking about long-time friendship, but my first loan, my personal residence in 2002 or 3,
Okay.
was with your company.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And the name of the mortgage originator is I'm gonna mess it up, but Artie or Arthur or something like this.
Arthur Schmidt.
Schmidt. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I can't remember names all that well.
And I ended up becoming friends with him, and I ended up selling him a condo in another building that I'd also put an offer on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a small world.
It is a small
It's
world.
been a
That
long
was
time. Yeah.
23 years ago.
The real estate industry can feel like dog years sometimes, but yeah, we've been doing this for quite a long time. So for those of you that don't know Prem is a really successful broker agent in Southern California. How did you get into it? And give me a little, I don't even know this, but give me a little bit about your background. I know you are an attorney as well.
Totally.
And so then moving into the real estate space.
I kind of fell into the real estate practice. When I was in law school, I had my mindset on being a patent attorney, and I had the requisite knowledge and education from being an engineer previously. And so I sat for the patent bar. But while I was in school, I realized that I love San Diego. I fell in love with the city. And I knew at that point, after that first year, like I was going to stay here, even if that meant taking a lesser paying job as an attorney here locally. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking around for condos my first summer after my first year of law school. And every time I would go into an open house, the agent would always have the same response. I would ask them if I should buy the home or condo, and they would say yes. But they didn't understand my qualifications. They didn't understand what the mortgage rate would be or what my payment would be like. They didn't understand if I wanted to rent the property, what the rental income would be like. And if you had those questions, they would defer you to someone else. And I thought, if you don't understand how to acquire the property, if you don't understand how to finance the property, if you don't understand how to manage the property and dispose of the property and all the tax consequences and all the different nuances, what are you really counseling or advising me on? It seemed like their motivation was purely to make a commission. And I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. Mm-hmm. So I ended up diving in and I started to sell real estate. I got my license my second or third year of law school, and I started to sell real estate to other students and people in my community. And I thought it was super fun. And by the end of my second year, I was actually flipping homes.
Oh, very cool. Is there something that you thought then new to real estate that is completely different now?
I think there's a lot has changed in real estate.
Not necessarily changed, but something that you thought as a new licensee coming out of law school, hair on fire, ready to roll,
right.
And now being more of a seasoned vet. Yeah.
Yeah, hair's still on fire, but
okay.
Yeah, whatever's left of it anyway. I think real estate has changed 180. I don't think in the ways necessarily that we're going to see in the next couple years. I think real estate is ripe for a lot of innovation. You've seen it happen, and it's at its inception. I think real estate's about to get really different really quickly. I mean,
give me some examples. What do you? I know I'm asking you to kind of predict the future, and think I agree with you. Things are changing, but our industry, in large part, stays the same. Everybody has been saying there's going to be innovation, and I know with the advent of AI and the popularity of it, we would hope to see some innovation. But our space.
Absolutely.
Slow to
I mean, the
adopt.
consumer mindset takes a long time to adapt, right? We have to train their adaptation, and because we're self-guided, right? So we want to keep the industry the way it is. The National Association of Realtors, it has a mandate to keep the industry exactly as it is. But you see, they're under attack. They're under attack by watchdogs. They're under attack by Zillow. They're under attack by Compass. Yeah. There's lawsuits flying around. You're starting to see those lawsuits take effect into the day-to-day practice of real estate agents, and you're starting to see it change consumer behavior. Once the consumer starts changing, once they can find the house on their own, the value proposition changes.
Yeah.
And those agents that change with that value, they'll succeed and they'll thrive, but it'll be under a new set of rules.
Where do you see specifically, because I agree with you, it's really easy to identify homes that you like. You can see open houses, you can
Absolutely.
go tour them. So the buying side of real estate has certainly changed, especially with commissions
1,000%.
and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
We're obviously, we're in the escrow side, so we're on the settlement. So we don't see a deal until it gets into an executed contract stage. So when on the agent side, I'm always fascinated and curious. What does it look like now? What have been some, like, in the I guess transactional side prior to it being an executed contract? What are you seeing? What's different? What's new?
Well, from the onset, the lawsuit that recently changed everything was Sitzer Burnett. And in that lawsuit, they made buyer commissions with sellers in advance of an offer illegal. So when I list your home for sale, we don't discuss the buyer commission. Of course, we can chat about it, but it's not something we contract to in advance. We wait until the buyer presents their offer. So in this respect, consumers are quickly learning that they may not have to pay their buyer's agent. In fact, technically it's prohibited. The buyer's agent is supposed to be paid for by their own client, the buyer.
Okay, interesting. So how are those conversations going with the consumer? What's typical, or is there things that you're seeing now that
That's a
would
good question. It's twofold today, right, Casey? Because what we're seeing is that the consumer is still new to what's changing, and the industry itself is adapting at a relatively slow pace. So we have conversations on both sides of the fence. What the law is and what the practice should be, and generally what the accepted practice is today, in which the buyer's agent's asking the seller to compensate the buyer so that they can pay their agent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the with AI, everyone is now an attorney. Everyone is now
Right.
really well versed in all sorts of transaction volume, and there still is a lot of nuance in every single deal. And we're seeing it on the closing side, and we're working with multiple agents on every single deal. And so, what do you? Is there something with the consumer where they feel empowered to negotiate with their buy side agent, which was not what was happening in the past, but also are they saying I can skip the agent and do this myself? And then are you seeing pitfalls with how they're doing? Because they're like, I could just AI things, or I can.
We're not seeing a lot of agents getting skipped.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, this is a business that requires a lot of empathy. It's a lot of hand-holding. It's a big transaction. It's typically someone's biggest transaction of their life.
Yeah.
So I think that the human intervention's always going to be there.
Yeah.
We're seeing it lessen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, there was a kind of the world is going to end in buy side real estate, right?
Right.
And we did, and in
Really,
large
it's
part
been
we never saw
relatively
that.
unchanged.
Yeah, not much. And same thing. That's why I keep thinking, okay, we're going to see an adoption in technology or change in technology, and it's going to happen very, very fast. And I'm always reminded that, specifically in escrow, settlement is we lag behind 10 years. So you saw Zillow come out,
Right.
and then it made accessing inventory a lot easier for the consumer.
I think a good analogy for technology, I mean, AI, we all think will be at a much faster pace of growth. But if we look back 20 years, and that's about when the iPhone came out, today, if we think about the iPhone, it changed our world, it changed our lives. Day to day, what we do, how we live, what we wear, right? Everything about our lives has changed in large part due to the iPhone. Now, if we look back 20 years ago, those changes didn't happen overnight. They took years.
Yeah.
20 years to be exact, right?
Yeah.
So we're on the iPhone 20, I think, this year. I think it's their anniversary edition.
Yeah. I want to go back to something because I find it interesting, just personally, as someone who has bought and sold all kinds of different pieces of real estate. Leveraging, utilizing, talking about being an attorney and having that background so where you can look at deals and understand contracts and all the different intricacies of what a transaction means to both sides, kind of looking at things through a prism and, as it relates to a deal. How do you use that to an advantage of somebody who got their license last weekend, or even a seasoned veteran? What do you say to both a buy side or a sale side when you're representing them?
So I think at the end of the day, having that law degree, having that experience, it can be helpful. It can also be a false positive, right? At the end of the day, like when I first came out of law school, guns blazing, I'm like, I'm going to crush everyone out there. I can rewrite the whole contract. and literally agents would be like, I don't even know what this says. So you really can't overdo it, but there is a very big psychological component to real estate, and where the law meets that is in negotiation. So using human psychology to better position a property, better position its financials, better position its attributes for economic gain, that's where kind of the lawyer brain kind of wins.
Yeah, that's great. Where do you, I always like asking this too, and it's general, but also you can get as specific or as general as you like. The market is in what I would consider a very flat from a transaction volume perspective. Prices are still really high, but we're seeing transaction volume remain relatively flat in comparison to earlier, COVID years when interest rates were super low. Where do you see the market now? Like your boots on the ground, and so I'm just curious on where do you see it and where do you see it going?
I think inventory is going to remain relatively low for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
There's just not a real rationale for a seller to put their house on the market, either to upgrade or downgrade.
Okay.
The National Association of Realtors has coined a term. They're called golden handcuffs. Mm-hmm. And so if a good percentage of Americans, and I think the number is staggering, like 80% of the people that have a mortgage have a rate below 5%, with a majority of those people, more than half, a less than 4% mortgage rate. Yeah. And then even a chunk of those people have less than 3%.
Yeah, there's no motivation when you're going to a 6.5.
A big statistic that I've been hearing about recently is that pre-recession, the Great Recession in 2008, the average loan to value ratio was somewhere around 80% or close to 80%, and the average home price was under $300,000. So you had a $240,000 loan on a $300,000 home. The average home price today is well over $500,000, but the average LTV is now 28%.
Wow.
So we owe less today on a home that's worth almost twice as much than we did 20 years ago.
So there'll be a big equity unlock when rates come down and you start to see transactions open up.
If rates beat those prevailing rates.
Well, I don't know that they're ever going to get back to that, not for any time in the foreseeable future, but there's this psychological thing that, and again, there's just one person's opinion. I never like to say that I'm like I know enough to be dangerous, and we see a lot of deals and talk to a lot of people, but this 6% threshold, somewhere in the mid fives is where I think people say, you know what, there's a lot of pent up demand.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it needs to go to 3 or 3.5, but the 5.5, I feel like, where people are just kind of holding on, where it's like it feels a little bit more reasonable, especially if you're in the fours.
Except you got to look at who's buying today, and a lot of people are buying for generational wealth. So they're buying assets for their children, whether the kids are old or out of college or have their own jobs. They're helping their children buy homes. They're helping their parents buy homes. They're buying multiple properties for investment. So you see a few people buying a lot of property, the rates don't impact their decision to sell.
We talk about investment properties. Let's talk about those for a minute. I think it's interesting, especially in San Diego. Cap rates are low. The
cap rates are super low.
Yeah. How are you underwriting deals? And I know you work with a lot of investor clients. How are they looking at deals? How are deals even penciling when prices are super high?
Yeah, it's tight on both sides. But again, if you have a need to acquire real estate,
like a 1031,
that need being a 1031 exchange, or you have capital that's being underutilized, whether it's sitting in the bank or just sitting idly by in some other savings account, and that real estate's going to produce to you, 3-4% maybe, that's a better return on money with inflation adjustment, right? Real estate's a great hedge on inflation.
And you can adjust for taxes and
you get a tax benefit. And then you have the tax bill that Trump passed last year that allows for 100% cost segregation and tax bonus.
Yeah. Those are great.
That's kind of a big rationale to buy, right? Especially if you're in that position where you have idle capital sitting around.
What's your primary focus when you look at, additional clients? How do you go out and you work to gain the trust of somebody who's going to, rely on you for one of their biggest purchases? What are some of the ways in which you either meet or work with people?
So we kind of solely focus on our network, the people that we already know, the people that know and trust us. It takes a long time to build up trust and relationship. So we're not the kind of firm that goes out. We don't do any cold calling. We don't buy any leads. We don't do any of that expired listing marketing. We already know you typically.
Yeah.
Typically we're already in your sphere of influence. we've already have maybe some business relationship, probably we've already sold or bought a home for you.
Okay.
Not necessarily. And we coach people throughout the course of their entire lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, that relationship that is not transactional, but more so to look at the bigger, wider scope of a picture over a number of years versus one transaction.
Exactly.
I love that. That's a great way to maintain and build and grow a book of business. What are some things, if you were speaking to the average consumer as it relates to real estate, what are things that you're like, these are on my checklist of things that I talk about every single time? I think these are like foundational when someone's looking at buying or someone's looking at or selling, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, it really is so different, right? It's so case by case with someone's individual needs. I think that's what kind of sets us apart too, is really looking at their whole picture. Are they in an acquisition mode? Are they downsizing? Do they need to be downsizing? What are their needs are, like what's their job, what's their income, what's their source of future income? And we sort of weigh out all those things, which as much as they're willing to share with us. Yeah.
Where do you land on this, I guess the newest hype in real estate where the listing agent, and who owns the listing data, right? I guess Compass and Zillow and these, multi-billion-dollar companies.
I happen to be with Compass.
Yeah.
And I do think that Robert Revkin, the CEO of Compass, is onto something. I think agents should have always owned the data. Mm-hmm. They are the author of that information. I think alongside with the homeowner who owns the home should own that data.
Is this kind of like the Napster of the yesteryears?
In a sense, yeah, in a sense it is.
Where the musician.
I mean, what Zillow was doing, not to bash Zillow in any sense of the imagination, but Zillow was taking the data that agents would write, the copy, the pictures, the photography, the copyrighted materials, and they were getting them free from the MLS and then selling them back to those same agents. Mm. I don't know if I believe in that concept really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the agent should have the right to that data. Yeah. Again, alongside with the homeowner.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. I love speculating and talking and strategizing about what the next. We just talked. We've been doing this for over 20 years now. What do the next 20 years look like? What do you see? Where do you see the industry going? The cycles, the technology. Obviously, it's a broad question, but what are some of the things?
I think you've seen it in the mortgage industry a little bit. I think you see a lot fewer practitioners for one.
Yeah, consolidation. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the neighborhood expertise is becoming very vital. So you're seeing a resurgence of that, and you're seeing the mass marketer sort of like dissipate, at least to some degree.
Okay.
People want to know the person that they're working with. They want the advice from that person. So you're seeing the local guy, I think, really make good headway in this market space. Yeah. And I think you'll continue to see that for a while.
Okay. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a couple of settlement questions, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
As a top producing agent, one who's doing deals, all throughout Southern California, we joked off camera, which was, I do residential, but over 4 units, so 5 units plus is considered commercial, so commercial and residential. But I like that, and I hadn't heard that. It's like, no, I consider residential somewhere where someone's laying their head on a pillow, like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense when you look at it like that. But what are things that you look for when you pass a deal or you entrust an escrow company to make sure that your deal closes? What are things that you're like, these are must-haves?
Actually, it's a hot button right now, and you probably spend a lot of time on it. I know you do, actually. And that's fraud. Yeah. I had a client recently get emailed an escrow instructions to wire the money, and it looked like it came from the developer's office, it came from the escrow office. It looked extremely professional, but when he called me, I said, wait a minute, I don't think the deposit's actually due yet. It's for a new construction project in downtown, and we called the office and they said, yeah, you got another month, and we wouldn't have sent you that. So luckily he was savvy enough to catch it and stop it, and then we authenticated it, and it was false.
Wow.
But I think good escrow companies are also doing that.
Yeah, there's a big push right now for voice and for phone calls and for not just check the box, but establishing a relationship.
Exactly.
And with multiple people on the team and talking about setting expectations over the 4+ week that this deal is going to be, initiated to close. And we talk about it all the time because, the AI while it offers a lot of really cool things, it does also give people, the fraudsters, a lot of power and a lot of optionality as it relates to theft.
Well, it's pretty easy to sound like a robot when you are a robot.
Yeah. And they've gotten significantly better. I mean, we're as an escrow company, we're moving millions of dollars all day, every day. We're a target, and so we've got to have security, we've got to have protocols, we've got to be talking about it, and a lot of it comes down to common sense. But there's also, you get busy and you move quickly, and that's when mistakes happen. And I think the consumer, even if they're an investor who does 20, 30 deals a year, and so they're familiar with things, they still that we're doing 20, 30 deals, in several hours versus several months. And so we have a responsibility to talk to every single principal in a deal and educate them on what's going on, to make sure that they understand what the risks are, to make sure they understand we're not ever going to change our trust account. We're never changing our wire instructions, that we always talk, always verify. Don't just have a relationship with the agent, but for the next 30 days, we want the relationship with you. So we want to start anticipating needs, but also making sure the communication is there. A lot of people are busy, and I get that, but this is a huge transaction. There's 6-7 figures moving accounts in a short amount of time. That's risky, and you oftentimes get one chance. And so, you got to be really good at that. What are some other things from a settlement side? So security, obviously paramount.
Security is number one.
Yeah,
no question. I think communication is probably number two, and it's not necessarily like over communication. It's just the right amount of communication.
Yeah.
The most annoying thing I think for an agent is on the day of close of escrow having like 65 emails versus just one, right?
Yeah.
With an update. I think I've talked to you about that before, probably a long time ago. But
yeah. I'm selling a boat right now, and I'm in the process. And I told my agent, I said, I hope she doesn't see this, but actually I don't even care. I had joked about this because I said, look, here are my expectations as the seller. And by the way, a boat broker makes 10%.
Right.
That's insane. And so I'm like, I want to know a breakdown. You can text it, you can call it, you can email it. I don't care when it is, but I need it consistent every single week. And I want to know everything that happened, all the work that was done, and everything that was a result of that work. So you could say, what was the marketing? What were the phone calls? What were the showings? I don't care the format. I want it just consistent week over week. I have never, and so it's been listed now for 5 weeks. I've never gotten one. I have to follow up every single week, and I'll forget.
I'm laughing because I know exactly what this happens all the time.
And so as the consumer, I'm like, okay, I set clear expectations. I gave a little bit of bandwidth because people are busy. All I wanted was communication, right? And I think that's where, as a consumer, you're right. It feels, when you say it, so simple, and then in the practical nature of a transaction, it slips, or you don't do it, or you forget, or you're too busy. I think it's something that it's like common sense is not very common sometimes, and even if you give clear expectations and you don't get it in return, I'm like, you're never going to get a referral. I'm never going to pound. Like, if I have a good experience, I will pound the table. Absolutely. I will tell 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And it's not that this is a bad experience at this point.
And it's not probably like she's not doing the work.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And as somebody
who
is
worse, actually, if they actually are doing the work.
Well, and I know for me, I'm a control freak. I'm like, I want to be involved because I want to get things done and I want to execute.
But you probably don't want every little email and text that she gets.
Absolutely not. Once a week is fine. Like, call me when something big happens and you need my answer. Or else once a week, just put something together, call me, email me, whatever is easy for you.
Exactly.
And it's just, I as someone who works with a lot of agents, or our team does, the simple things are they get missed sometimes. And so when you said communication, I guess that was a triggering word for me, because I was like, yes, you got to do that. And it just feels so simple, but oftentimes it gets missed or maybe overlooked and underappreciated.
Yeah. There's also the opposite, where it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't need to be involved in the minutia.
Yeah, I think, well, as an agent, I think there's, it's preference. I think a lot of agents are, especially ones that are at scale and doing a lot of deals, there's a level of, if you're overly communicating, it's almost like, okay, you're not doing the job that I need you to do. Just give me like certain things. We look at it as a bespoke escrow, right? And what I mean by that is every agent is going to have preferences,
Totally.
and that's for each individual agent. That's what we should do. We should have a bespoke escrow experience with fundamentals that are on every escrow when it comes to security, but also like communication for one agent could mean something totally different to another agent. We have agents that are like, I trust you. Don't call me. Don't text me. Like deal with everyone else.
It's super important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I just expect it to get done, and that's certainly. It would be funny. I wish I should poll my escrow officers and to find out what they prefer more of. I think when escrow officers have communication with the agent, they feel more connected, and that feels good because they're like, okay, our relationship is sticky.
Sure.
But I think for certain agents, they're like, hey, if you close it, and my borrower or my buyer or my seller is in love with you, that's what I care about. Like, just do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell me my buyers has an appointment to sign loan docs, great. If you tell me it's at 3 o'clock, okay. You then text me at 3:10 saying that they're signing, and 3:15 that they're finished. It's probably like over communicative at some point.
Yeah.
Like I don't need all that. Like they got an appointment, they did it, great, thanks.
Yeah. No, totally. So we'll wrap here, and I want to give you the floor to just give me, if you're competing, I want to talk a little bit about your particular business as it relates to San Diego and all of your markets. If you're competing with 3 brokers, walk me through what are some of the things that you're going to talk. And again, it's maybe, I know you said a lot of your book of business is people that you already know. So maybe you're not competing with brokers, but I would imagine you've got to compete with the other high producing agents, throughout town on some business, right?
Yeah, I think, to your point, like we really are more sphere and network based, and we don't do a lot of competition.
Really?
So we don't go on a ton of listing appointments.
Really?
Yeah, we're not like third to call, and that's typically not our clientele. If we built a relationship over a long period of time, and you understand the value of the service we provide, it is very bespoke in that sense.
Yeah.
Also having the knowledge about development that we have, we lean into construction standards, methods, being an expert witness for landlord-tenant law and brokerage fiduciary duties. Like when I kind of start stacking all those things together, maybe if you're selling a 2-bedroom condo, it doesn't necessarily benefit you to have all those. But if you're selling a home somewhere where there's some extra land or entitlements or something you can do where the best use hasn't been maximized, then we don't lose on those.
What are some, and I'm curious because I almost everything, well, actually, you know what, except for my boat broker. I usually meet with 3 people and we'll look at the nuances of both because I enjoy the process mostly. Sure. But when you evaluate, or in maybe broad strokes, just give me some idea, maybe generally speaking, what are some differences between a high producing agent?
I'll give you a specific point of something that we did the other day. I'm actually still in process of doing it. So I have a client that's considering selling their home, and it's a 1913 built home, I believe. I could be off by a couple of years. And home square footage, I think on tax record was 1900, but there's a basement that's part of the home that's been there for the whole time. So we spent the time, we went down to the records department at the county assessor's office. We met with the county assessor, we met with the local rep for that neighborhood, and we also went to the building department to get historical records. So after doing all that, it looks like we've put together a case that the county will accept and modify the square footage records to show the increased square footage. The home's traded 10 times in the 100 years, and no one's ever thought to do that.
Wow. Yeah, that's
now
great.
you can just write down a different number. A lot of agents do that. It's okay. It's not illegal to use a different square footage if you can justify it. But then that's a disclosure requirement. That is a bunch of other things that you're adding. And the buyer then has to sort of do their own due diligence as to how big the home actually is.
Right.
Well, we're going the extra step to say this is the size of the home. And then, of course, we're marketing it as a larger home and therefore at a higher price.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, let's wrap there. I appreciate your time. I'm always fascinated by high producing people in any industry, especially in real estate, just because that's the industry that I work in. But talking and kind of wrapping out about not only the past but the future of where we're at. I respect a lot of what you've done, and you've got a big palette of things that you cover, and for that I really appreciate and respect that. So thanks for your time, and it was fun to catch up, and
Absolutely.
and cheers to that.
Nice to see the office.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.